Welcome to Life Design Plus, where we are mastering the art of living your authentic life. Today's episode was a blast to record. My friend Lindsey Bell is the founder and chief strategist at 248 Ventures, and she's the creator of The Shift, which is a weekly newsletter she writes to help you think differently about work and money. And she's also a 2020 alum of the Investopedia's 40 Under 40 list, which yours truly was a part of as well. Now, I asked Lindsey to come join me to talk about her move from the corporate world to entrepreneurship. And while she was here, I also thought we'd get some insight into the trends that she's seeing when it comes to the workforce. We cover all of that and so much more. Be sure to have something handy to write with because she shares a lot of great ideas and tips. I'll even point a couple of them out in the conversation. Now, before we get to the episode, as always, I want to ask you a favor. Take a moment during or after the podcast to leave a note in the comments and let Lindsey know something that you took away from her story, how she motivated you, how she inspired you. Let her see some of the impact that she's having, because as we talk about, sometimes as a creator, you don't always get that feedback, and it's nice to know that you're making an impact by sharing your story. All right, let's get to this episode with Lindsey Bell. Let's dive into the recent bet that you just took on yourself. This is the beginning of the month, which means we're talking to somebody who has pursued their passion and bet on themselves and maybe broke away from something that was comfortable for a long period of time. So let's talk about The Shift, 248 Ventures, kind of what those are, and then why you bet on yourself, and maybe we can work backwards from there.
Sure. So 248 Ventures is my own company, and to be honest, I'm still figuring it out, but I'm really using that business to either create investment strategies or content strategies for other firms, but also it's just like kind of you, I'm sort of creating media opportunities there as well. And it's really just a home for all the different things that I'm doing and exploring right now. And then The Shift is my newsletter, which is really all about empowering people to really think about their careers, work, and money just completely differently, to take ownership of that as well too. So, and that to me is just like, it's a passion project of mine. I've been curious about the shifting workforce, which I believe has been happening since at least the great financial crisis. A lot of people will pinpoint the pandemic as really creating a massive change in the way we work, but I think it was all in play way before then. And so I explore those ideas in my newsletter each week, which comes out on Fridays. And so it's just a new avenue of research and talking about a different topic than what I've talked about in the past. But I think combined together, it's really just me finding a way to control my destiny in my career a little bit differently.
What made you want to do that? What made you want to go control your destiny?
So I think I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit inside of me. And I also find when I work in corporate roles, I find myself, I'm a creative type of person. I'm an innovative type of person, which is I think why you and I connect too. And because of that, while I understand, I work in the financial services industry, I know the lines in the sandbox, and I know you need to stay in the sandbox, but I'm always going to want to kind of reach a hand out or put a foot out. It won't get too crazy, but I have that creative side to me, so I'm always going to kind of try and think outside of the box. And I find that a little more difficult to do in many corporate settings. Not all, but the settings that I was in probably became a little more difficult. So when I combine the entrepreneurial spirit with like this thirst and interest in creativity and innovating, for me, it just kind of all made sense for me to try something on my own, go all in and see what happens.
I want to stay on the entrepreneurial spirit, especially while you're in the corporate setting, because it's easy to talk about the entrepreneurial spirit when you actually have moved into being an entrepreneur, starting a business. But I do think that it is possible to exhibit the entrepreneurial spirit and be entrepreneurial while working inside of a corporate setting. So you mentioned, there's the sandbox we have to play in the world of finance, and you would kind of go outside of it. How were you able, for those that are in a corporate setting that maybe starting their own business isn't the right thing right now, how are you able to continue to be entrepreneurial within the confines of a bigger organization?
Well, I think it's just bringing your unique ideas to your boss and really talking about it, but not just like having the aspiration of creating something new or doing something new, having the reason why and how it benefits the company. You have to get buy-in from your boss and then also the organization typically. And so you can totally do that in a corporate setting, and I'm completely with you. For most people, for most of us, it's easier to try to be entrepreneurial within a corporate setting. There's a lot less risk to take, and we'll talk about that. But I think it's really just getting buy-in from other folks. For example, when I was at Ally, I created what we call a digital conference series. It was the first time Ally had done anything like that, and it was really like being at a physical conference, but doing it virtually. We had this in the works before the pandemic hit, but then the pandemic hit and it just made it a lot easier to do. But it was really, we wanted to do it different. It was a financial services conference, educating people about investing primarily, but we wanted to make sure we tied it to, and I had a really great boss that supported me in this idea, tying it to the cultural events and what was happening in the now. So we wouldn't just have like buttoned up suit and ties guys and gals from Fidelity or Goldman Sachs talking about their fixed income products or their investing strategy. It was really about bringing outside speakers coming in, people that think outside of the box, like people in the fire space or people in the IA or AI space. We brought them in to really kind of talk about what they're seeing and how that could benefit individuals when it comes to their money. So it was really fun to kind of do that because I was given the leeway to be a little more creative in that space. And so that was really an exciting opportunity for me. And to me, that was like creating my own thing, being entrepreneurial within the corporate setting.
And I think you mentioned something that's very easy to be entrepreneurial and express your creativity is just finding different solutions to the same problems. The majority of the people are afraid to take a chance and suggest a new idea. And if you're comfortable stepping outside that box, one that separates you from everybody else, and maybe you get it wrong, but maybe you get it right. And now you get to continue to express your creativity through your ideas. I think a lot of times, maybe this is just me, but a lot of times when I would think about creativity, it's about art and music, but creativity exists everywhere. So I'm glad that you brought up being able to be entrepreneurial, being able to be creative in a corporate setting, because a lot of people are in a corporate setting. Which brings me to a post you made on LinkedIn that almost blew up the outline I sent you, and to start over from something different. So we'll go into the corporate, we'll take corporate over to this, but you wrote, "Playing it safe is risky." Tell me more.
Well, so I actually, to me, playing it safe is risky. Playing it safe is staying on the same career path you've always been on, or sticking to what you know. A big thing that I'm all about too, in my creative or unique thinking is always questioning the status quo. Because if you stay on the same path doing the same things, you're actually preventing yourself from growth. And I'm not just talking about professional growth, right? You could do that on the same path if you so choose to, but you're missing out on opportunities for intellectual stimulation, for meeting other people, or even discovering that you yourself have other interests and you're actually good at other things. So to me, you can stay on that same path and dip your toe into these other areas. I think, volunteering for a project on the marketing team when you're in the investment team, just to help them out, you might learn something new that you can apply back to your everyday job. So it's not necessarily going out on your own and being an entrepreneur, but it's really testing the waters to see what else is out there, because what you risk is this, I don't know, this interest or joy in learning something new. I mean, granted, maybe being on the safe road, that's perfectly, there are many people that are perfectly satisfied with that, but I don't think the people listening to this podcast probably are. So to me, it's really just taking on that risk to try something new, to learn something more, to meet new people.
Well, when I read it, I didn't necessarily think go start a business or leave the career you're at, and like the risk, because a lot of times people will think, oh, I'm going to stay in this corporate setting because I have a salary and benefits and like that's safe. But as people are seeing over the last couple of years, and we've seen in the past, that's safe as only as long as the company is stable. And it's not as safe as you think because you can be let go. So that wasn't where my mind went with that statement, though. But secondarily, it went there. I thought of it more because I'm looking through it through my lens. of that. Yeah, don't play it safe and don't stay on the path that's not the path you really want to be on. Like take the risk and go pursue the thing that you want. And that doesn't always mean you throw out what you're doing, everything. There's small ways to do it. Like you, if your company would have allowed you, you could have started writing the shift as a side project while you were at Ally. And then when you leave Ally, you have something. Like you can pursue your passions without going all in on it right away to figure out if this is what you really want to do and kind of test the waters, but then eventually go take that risk. And I think that the things that we're mostly afraid of that we identify as risk really aren't that severe.
Right. We build them up as risks and create this fear so that we don't take the next step. We don't pursue what we're interested in. But I think now is one of the best times to be alive, to be able to do something that you really do enjoy. There's this thing called that I call the Internet of Opportunity. I mean, there's never been an easier or lower barrier to entry for so many different things. If you really have a passion for doing makeup or hair on the side, you could do that on a YouTube channel and monetize it on the side. And I think corporations are starting to get a little more comfortable with people having little side gigs as long as it's not taking up too much time. And so to me, it's just like you've got to ask yourself, what's the risk of me staying exactly in the lane I'm in, staying exactly who I am today? What's the risk? Where will I be in 10 years? Where will I be in 5 years? Am I going to be happy there? And I think that a lot of people forget to think forward. There's so much going on. We're all so busy, so we get stuck in the now and maybe the next 6 months or 12 months. But I think it's really important for everybody to sit down and think about what's my next 5 years look like? What do I want? What do I want?
It's so important to figure out is what do you want? And I don't know if you've struggled with this, but to think about what I want as a husband and as a father and as an advisor to clients, like it somewhat can feel selfish. If I think about me first, that can be selfish. But what I realized and why I had a shift in perspective is that if I'm not happy, and without being overboard with selfishness, but if I'm not taking care of me and doing the things that make me feel the best, then I can't be the best version of myself for everybody else. So there is a time where you need to think about you and what you need and what makes you happiest so that you can fulfill that and then go be the best for everybody else. And like I said, you can spill out and become too selfish where it is you're actually the selfish we think of. But I don't know if you've had any struggle prioritizing you and what makes you happy so you can be the best for your family and your clients and your friends and everybody else who relies on you.
Yeah, no, it's a struggle every day. I have 2 young children under the age of 3, so family is always a top priority for me, and there's a balancing act, and I think too is not to get into genders, but like the women, like I feel like it is a little bit difficult when children are young for women to work and care for children and do all that the stuff that we're expected to do and want to do. So I do think there is a little bit of a struggle. There's a little bit of a balancing act, but I agree with you completely. If I'm internally distraught about not being able to achieve my dreams and goals or figuring out a way to do that, then I'm not going to show up at dinner with my kids or at the playground on the weekends as my best version of myself. I'm always going to be thinking about that. I'm not going to be present. So I agree with you. It's a struggle, but I think none of us are alone in that struggle.
Right.
If that's any consolation.
Well, speaking of struggle, hopefully it hasn't been one, but I talked about with last month's guest, Lauren Owens, like this messy middle, which is not a term I've claimed, but I think I'm going to use it a lot. So you might be in the beginning phases of the messy middle of, leaving the corporate world to being an entrepreneur and following your passions. But how has that transition into entrepreneurship been so far?
Oh, it is messy. It's, some days are so exciting and wonderful, and you wake up and you can't wait to hit the ground running. You're excited that you get to do your thing the way you want to do it. But then there are other days where it's just things aren't going your way, and it's frustrating and you're wondering, how am I going to build this and scale this to make this sustainable over the long term? I mean, we all need to generate income, right, to live. So I don't know. It's a back and forth, but I tell myself every day, just keep going. On the bad days, just keep going. It's not a bad life. It's not a bad month. It's not a bad year. It's today, or it's a couple hours. Like, you can rebound off of this. You had a bad call, whatever. You got some bad news. You're going to keep moving forward. And I think that's, or at least I tell myself, and it seems like I've seen it all over the internet, like that's really that persistence. It's also served me well in my past, is being persistent, being determined, and really having that self-belief. But it gets messy, and people tell you before you go into your entrepreneurial journey that this isn't a cakewalk. It's hard. It's all day and all night hard. It's always on your mind, but it's rewarding. The reward is that you get to do your own thing the way you want to do it. You get to name your hours, get to name the times and places that you want to work and who you want to work with, who your customers are, all that stuff. So, choose your hard, right? Your hard can be showing up to the 9 to 5 that you hate every single day just because it's a steady paycheck. So choose your hard.
Well, not only choose your hard, I'm curious, is hard today doing the thing that you enjoy the most the way you want to do it? Is today's hard different than corporate hard where you weren't allowed to fully be yourself? Because to me, I don't think, like, by no means has starting a business and doing the things I've done been easy, but I honestly wouldn't tell you it's been hard, because the hard times I still got to do the thing that I really enjoyed, and like the passion that I had for it, it was just part of the process. It wasn't something that I viewed as hard. It's just something I had to overcome and do. And I don't know if other people feel that way or if I just have this weird wiring in my brain that I'm glad to have, but I think hard doing what you enjoy the most is different than hard when you're doing something you don't enjoy.
I agree with that. I think that you hit it spot on. Hard that you don't like is different than hard that you do enjoy and you're kind of in control of. And so I agree with you. I think when I look at what I do right now, it's still pretty similar to what I did in the past. But the difference is just that, like, I have ownership of it, and I get to say if I keep going or not somebody else. And so I agree. I don't think it's harder. It's just different, and it's just a different perspective, I think.
So overcoming hard, requires, I think, confidence. So I think what keeps a lot of people in the status quo and playing it safe is maybe a lack of confidence or not believing in themselves to be able to do it. How did you find the confidence to make the leap from corporate to doing the shift in 248?
You know what? Like, I still am finding the confidence every single day, but I think one of the biggest things for me is because I still have that little voice on the side of my ear telling me, the imposter syndrome, that you shouldn't be doing this, that, maybe somebody else can do it better, this, that, the other thing, you don't have the experience that other people have, blah, blah, blah. But I think for me, it's to silence that voice. It's really removing, especially in the social media landscape, removing all the people that you think or believe in your own head that you make up could be judging you, just forgetting that they're there, or even removing people so you don't remember them, but just forget about them and really focus on why you're doing something and what it means to you and why you believe in it and how much you believe in it. And for me, it's like the data that I have to back it up. But so I think it's, to me, building the confidence is just ignoring the loud or non-existent voices around me that tell me that I can't do it or that I'm not good enough. So that's kind of how I build my confidence.
Does doing the thing that you're passionate about and the thing that you feel called to do, does that bring additional confidence to you?
Yeah, I think every day that you do it and every step you take forward, it just gives you more confidence that you can do it and that you're moving in the right direction and that and seeing the traction that you get. That to me is the best medicine of all, is really seeing the traction. That's what keeps me going every single day. The second the traction stops is when you have to start questioning yourself if you're on the right path. But as long as I'm seeing the traction, that helps me move forward and it helps me build my confidence.
I can't help but think about the podcast I recorded yesterday, which will be dropping next week with Tyrone Ross, and the subject matter is perseverance. And we talked about taking one step forward and moving forward. So I didn't know that these two episodes are going to be perfect for each other in February, but they lined up magically, which is just another piece of evidence of synchronicity that happens in my life. I just wanted to throw that in there because as you're saying it, I'm just like, man, I just talked about this yesterday. How do you handle all the emotions of this messy period of time?
I mean, it's kind of like the taking one step at a time. It's taking one emotion at a time and just kind of, you could feel down after a conversation or information that you get or something that doesn't go your way. But I think it's really just kind of taking a step back and realizing that, okay, this is just one thing. Remind yourself of, I like to keep a email folder of different compliments I've got about what I'm doing and why I'm doing it and responses to my newsletters that are positive. And I go back to that folder to kind of recenter me and remind myself why I'm doing it. I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing it for the readers. I'm doing it to open minds, to help people think differently, to help people take ownership of their own lives in a way. And so to me, it's really just kind of getting refocused on what really matters and not focusing on the negative. But it is like, it can be an emotional roller coaster. And, I let myself, if I'm having a really bad day, it's okay. I can sulk for a day or for an hour. But then it's time to move on and remind myself why I'm doing it.
That's definitely something everybody should have wrote down is to create like a swipe file of all of the good feedback that you get. I have the same thing. I have a folder on my phone that I take screenshots of text messages and then I save emails that come through. And the one thing I would just share with you, and somebody else told me this, that like for every one good email you got, there's probably 10 to 20 others that just they didn't send. So like we're only seeing a small fraction of the people that we actually are impacting, which would be my encouragement to anybody out there that if you are consuming content from anybody that is making you feel good, like let that person know because they may have been going for a while without that positive feedback, and that email you send them to say, hey, I really liked this thing might keep them going, which would be good for you because you get to keep consuming their content.
It's so true. Like, I think you're so spot on. Like, we kind of need a little like boost of encouragement at times. And I will say, if you're a newsletter subscriber to anybody's newsletter and you read it and you appreciate it, like let the person know. It really is it's gonna make their day, and it's gonna motivate them to keep giving you good content.
As an optimistic person who's never going to stop writing, never stop recording podcasts, because I don't do it for like the vanity numbers, it is still really nice to get something back. I don't do it for it, but when you get it, it's like, yes, like this, because the reason we do these things, at least I'll speak for myself, is I want to have a positive impact on others. And it's just nice to know that, okay, I am making an impact. I'm like, if I ever had any doubt, I'm going to keep on going because of these folders. So, and then there's something else I thought of that I think is really important to highlight is that it is okay to sulk for a little while. And for a little while is the key thing. I had Ryan Russell on my podcast last year, and and people probably know that he passed away in December, but he talked about this 90-10 rule. So this is a gentleman who has a young family battling brain cancer, and he said 90% of the time I'm overly optimistic, like sickeningly. But then 10% of the time I'm really, really low. And it's okay because you have to process those emotions. You can't bury them because we know if you bury them and don't let them out, you're going to blow up. So take the 10%, feel down while you need to feel down, and then pick yourself back up. And I think the key there is maintaining 90-10. Don't let it become 85-15 and then 80-20. And then before long, it's flip-flop. So I do think it's very important because, most of us don't show the negative moments on social media. We don't write about it in our content. So you see us as optimistic and believing in ourselves, and we do, but we all have those moments, and it's okay to have that moment. Just don't stay there.
Well, I agree with that. And if somebody with brain cancer can have that outlook on life, I think any one of us can, right? That has, not such a difficult situation to deal with. But I also think too, a lot of people practice gratitude and they have nothing but positive things to say. And I haven't been somebody that's really been into that. I mean, I'm always grateful for certain things in my life. But you know what? Recently I heard Oprah talk about her one religion really is that she, first thing when she gets up, before she lets her mind wander about what she's going to do for the day and whatnot, she takes a minute to think about what she's grateful for. She's not one that writes it down, but she thinks about it. She does it at the end of the day too, right before she goes to bed and before she shuts her eyes. And I've been starting to do that too. And it is, I feel like you see the world in a different way. And granted, I've only been doing this for like 3 weeks, but it just, you see the good and the abundance that you do have, even on the days when things aren't going right for you. You know, when your family is healthy, when your kid gave you the biggest hug ever and just made you feel super loved. Like, these are things that are small but are super meaningful. It's the, like, what life is all about. So work is one thing, but you're always going to have something good going on. So I think 90-10 is a fair split.
And if you believe in like the law of attraction and energy, like I do, all you're doing in that instance is you're using these small little things to shift your energy to a higher level, which will begin to bring more higher energy type things to you. I wrote about it earlier this week when we're recording, about if you're struggling to find alignment or you're feeling down, just go do something nice for random people. Like, smile at them, say hi. Like, little things that make somebody else's day better will make you feel better. It's a really cool thing, and like, I think that the contagious energy that you're spreading comes back to you and elevates you. So I do think, save the hardest moments in life. Most of the things we deem as hard and get us down, we can get ourselves out of it pretty quickly if we're just aware of it and practice little things like abundance or doing random acts of kindness for people.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think it's just, there's a lot of good going on, and if you're being down, like, if you can do something for somebody else, there's no better feeling in the world than helping somebody else. And I think spreading kindness and positivity we need more of that in the world.
Especially when you're doing it not with any expectations of anything in return. Like, when you just go genuinely do something nice for somebody and then walk away, like that, you do feel good. And I guess maybe you are doing it to make yourself better, but you're not doing it expecting them to do something back for you, or you're not doing it because the universe is going to repay you. It's just like, hey, I'm going to go do something good for somebody, and that'll make me feel better.
Exactly.
So, staying in the messy middle part of this, and we may have to revisit it in a couple of years when the shift is massive and you've got your own podcast off of it and everything. But what's been the biggest positive surprise in your transition?
I think the support that I've gotten from others, and not just others, like not random people, connections that I haven't talked to in a while. People have just reached out, or I've randomly run into people in different places or different things I'm doing. And just the support for, not only sharing the shift with others, but, telling me what they like about it or what might not be working. Usually they're mostly pretty positive, but it's been a way to just reconnect with people as well, too. So that's been a surprising, positive side to it, I guess, is just the reconnection with other people that I haven't, in the industry, that I haven't talked to in a while.
All right, it's time for a short break. I hope you're enjoying this episode with Lindsey. I told you it was a blast to record, and I hope you're having a blast listening to it. If you find yourself feeling like you have a higher purpose, or that there's something bigger that you're supposed to be doing in your life, but you're not sure what it is, or you just feel stuck, I want you to consider checking out Life Design Plus at RLS Wealth. Now, Life Design Plus is the relationship that I recently launched that merges life planning and coaching with financial planning. It's all in a single relationship. It might just be what you need to break through and find your authentic life. You might just need somebody who can help you find the answers that lie within, coordinate some of those things, align the finances with that authentic life to help you get on your way. To learn more about the relationship, head on over to rlswealth.com, go to the top of the page, click on Life Design, read all about it. And if you have any questions, I'm not hard to find. All right, let's get back to this great episode with Lindsey Bell. And not that I like to go low energy, but I'm trying to keep this honest and authentic and transparent. If there's been anything negative?
Yeah, I think you're a creator. I think coming up with ideas is always a struggle. Not just I can come up with ideas, it's just kind of having a really thoughtful idea that, in my case, I always like to have it backed by some sort of data point. There are days where I'm just like, I have writer's block, or I can't find the right idea, and it's just really frustrating. Or I'm not getting the traction that I want to get as quickly as I'd like to get it. You kind of make up these things in your head of how fast you're supposed to be building. And, it's those are the days where I struggle a little bit. So it's, there's pros and cons to everything.
And has there ever been a point in the last year where you thought about going back to the safe route?
There's always the temptation, Justin. No, No, I mean when there will be different opportunities that'll come my way, and in the you know there are times I've thought about it, and then I decide no, I need to keep pursuing what I'm pursuing. But when I think about it too, I wouldn't mind, like, I'm still passionate about the markets as much as I'm passionate about the shift in the workforce. And so for me, it would really come down to what the situation is, and mostly like who the people are. Because I've worked in the industry for long enough that, to me, or even any work, it doesn't matter what industry you work in, to me, it's all about the people at the end of the day. So it's not like I would never go back. I never know you don't know what's going to happen with this, right? You might find a need to go back. But I'm pursuing for now and keeping, just keeping my options open. But it gets tempting sometimes, Justin.
Well, I mean, that's good to know because there's going to be people who are in your shoes that are going to have those options that come, and hearing that it is tempting, but you're deciding to continue to bet on yourself and pursue what you feel called to do right now, gives them confidence to do that. Is there anything that that internally allows you to say, yeah, I should just keep pursuing this? Or is it really just, when you have these opportunities, you just look at both and say, yeah, like your gut tells you that's not the thing to take. Like is there anything that you can share that would be helpful for people who might have this decision in front of them that has helped you decide to stay on the path you're on?
Yeah, I think that's like a really smart, really good question, Justin. For me, I always trust my gut on certain things
Mm-hmm.
like this, but I also think it's really, knowing what is that point of failure for you, that it's not working and it's not going to be what you hoped it to be. Like I always have that in the back of my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, that's making, turning the shift into a monetization possibility within 6 months, and then reaching a different level in a year.
Mm-hmm.
And really just like also considering like how is this financially impacting my family as well. So those are kind of some of the things I think about. But also I think about, again, not only the opportunities that do arise, like who is it with, but making sure they understand who I am as a person, and that I have these other interests, and finding support in the other interests, even if it's potentially downshifting to 48 Ventures or the shift to take on a greater opportunity somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
I would just, I think it's really kind of finding that balance, at least at this point in time, in my journey. That's how I kind of think of it. But I think for everyone, you're gonna have to. I think you need to come up with that. When is the drop dead date of this? Like, what are my certain goals that I want to hit or meet? And if I'm not getting there, or I'm not seeing traction to get to where that is, then maybe it is time that I throw in the towel. Maybe I need to make a pivot, or maybe I need to go back to what I was doing before, just to kind of reset
Mm-hmm.
before I start a new journey or entrepreneurial journey. So I think it's just like always having those types of things in the back of your mind.
Mm-hmm.
Because what is it? Like how many I don't know, small businesses fail every year.
Yeah,
Not that
I don't
you
know the number. It's a high percentage of them though.
It's a high percentage, so you have to know that there's a chance it might not work out. I try not to think about the fact that it might not work out, and really just think about that it's going to work out, at least at this stage. Um, but having that realistic conversation with yourself, like when do I know that it's not working out, that I need to kind of move on and maybe reconsider what I was doing previously.
Well, I think that doing some planning, knowing those numbers, but I do think erring on the side of believing that it's going to happen. Again, that falls to the
Yeah.
law of attraction. So if you're thinking about, oh, I'm going to fail, this isn't going to work, then it's going to fail, it's not going to work. But you have a much greater chance of succeeding if you believe you're going to be succeeding, and you've done the work to know what you need to make and when you need to make it by, and then you can make those judgments. But I do think that your advice to follow your gut and listen to your intuition is a good one. And that's where spirit, mind, and body being aligned, I think, help you do that. But I do think your intuition is always going to be right.
Yeah, I think you have to trust your intuition, and I also think that you have to keep an open mind. I'm all about also not only questioning the status quo, but really keeping an open mind about things because again, like you think you don't want to do what you left, right? That's just the mindset you're in. But is that really the true answer? Maybe there's a different way you can do what you were doing previously that marries with what you want to do now. And I think having that open mind that there are more possibilities in the world than that just black and white. You either work 9 to 5 or you're an entrepreneur. There's a lot of different ways that you can work around a lot of these things. And if you find the right partner in an organization that wants to work with you, and again, like I said, partner with you on those types of things, I think that there's possibilities out there. So I don't think you should just think I'm never going back or I'm only pursuing this. I think you could just keep your mind open.
That's great advice. I
Well,
want
and
to.
I'll say this is coming from someone who's really kind of like new to the game and still figuring it out herself too. So this isn't, which maybe that's a good thing because entrepreneurs that have made it, they have all this savvy advice, but they don't really tell you about the times they failed or the other opportunities that they missed and things like that. So,
Well, I always try to tell everybody, you listen to these podcasts and other podcasts and read books and listen to mentors, but everybody is sharing their own perspective, which is only
mhm.
one person's experience, which may or may not be relevant to your experience. But if you listen to enough different stories, you can begin to piece together what's going to work for you. So, even though you might be early in this, your experience is your experience. It's very real. So it is valid. And you are an expert from that standpoint. So, I think it was great. I do want to shift more to the shift and kind of how you came up with that. So, how did you come up with not so much the name, but more that you wanted to write about this shift in the way people view work?
Well, like I said, it was really something that I started noticing in the years leading up to the pandemic. I just started noticing people perhaps in my age range that were becoming more and more unsatisfied with work. And also people wanting more to find more purpose and fulfillment in work. And by the way, I'm not a person that believes that everybody's work is going to be their purpose in life. There's other purposes you can have in life. But I think that if you find something that you're good at, you're going to enjoy it and it then becomes purposeful. Um, but so that's my take on that. But I just noticed this shift in people just getting more and more frustrated, working longer and longer hours, getting paid not as much as they maybe felt they should get paid. And it just made me really curious about what is going on in the world of work right now. And so I just started digging into it. And then the pandemic happened, which really pushed everything over the edge. It was, like I said, I think it was the tipping point of all these trends that were happening in the background. And so I just decided, and I would have conversations with friend after friend, colleague after colleague about all these things and how miserable they were and how someone got laid off and couldn't find a new job. And it was seemingly happening to all these experienced workers. And then you're seeing also in the background all these people starting on their entrepreneur journey on the internet, whether it's creating YouTube channels or creating digital education. And there's just became all these extra opportunities. And for me, it was just like, okay, what is happening here? Let me just stop, slow down, do what I do, look at the data, figure out, study history, figure out what is actually happening. And then really now I'm kind of at the point where I've done that. I'm still digging into what's happening in the last year or two. But what does that mean for the future of work? What does that look like? And I think that's really what the question most of us have right now. What is the future of work? What do I want to do? What do I want work to look like for me in the future? Like, what is the work-life balance? What do I want from an employer? What does an employer want from me? And I think that there are stakes, really great stakes on both sides of the table for the employee and the employer. I think the employer, I've talked to managers and leaders that are just as miserable with their employees as the employee is miserable with them. So to me, the shift is really just exploring what the heck is going on out there in the work world. And then also, how can we eliminate that angst between the employer and the employee? Because our economy needs corporations to run, to be successful, right? not everyone can be an entrepreneur. The economy would have problems if that was the case. Not to disencourage others from pursuing that route, but corporations do play a vital role in our economy and the products that we have and the services that we receive and all those things. So I think that we need to better align employees with employers, and that's really what my focus is, I think, going to be going forward, is finding how we make that alignment, what works for employers and what works for employees, and how does that benefit both sides of the table.
Are there any trends that you're seeing that excite you?
Well, so the more I dive into the situation, the data, and I still feel like I'm on really early, like at the early stages of doing a lot of this, even though I've been writing about it since September, is that I think what I'm really zoned in on is I believe that there's an inflection point. And I think it's when you maybe hit 10 to 15 years in your career where you kind of know I'm either on the track to the C-suite or greater things within the organization, which is what I want to do. Or, I'm happy with working 9 to 5, punching the clock, receiving my cost of living wage every year, but doing a really good job of what I do. Being a cog in the wheel makes me happy because I have my life outside of that too. But then there's the folks that want more. And whether that be they have that creative side, like maybe I do, where they want to test the waters with innovation and different things, or maybe they get bored doing the same task over and over again for many years, and they want to go from marketing to accounting to the risk department to try different things within an organization. And so what I'm seeing, and I think it's a really early trend, I'm writing about it in the shift this week, which will be January 19th. So go back to www.lindseybell.com, the Shift's blog. Sorry, I just plugged myself.
Oh no, we're gonna plug it at the end anyway. I'll make sure everybody gets to it and subscribes. Don't worry.
But one of the trends that I'm writing about this week that I think is super exciting is the rise in multiple job holders. So people with full-time jobs primarily are taking on a part-time job. And I don't think what I'm trying to dig into and find out is I don't think it's for economic reasons, like people covering expenses, which I naturally would have thought of given the inflation that we've gone through. But I think people are doing it because they enjoy it, but also to test the waters and trying something different or reskill themselves. And I think there's a couple different reasons out there. And so what I'm excited about is this idea that potentially there's an opportunity once we hit that inflection point for employers to look at those types of employees that want more or want to try and test the waters with different things. Maybe they become contract employees where they're on a 2-year contract. At 18 months, the contract is reviewed. They're working on certain projects or certain strategies within the group. And the company and the person decide, okay, we no longer need you after this 2-year bucket is filled and you now have 6 months to figure it out, or we're going to sign you on for another 2 years or 3 years or whatever it is. I just think there's this opportunity for that experienced level of employee that employers can keep them in-house, keep the knowledge in-house in a different way that's more satisfying to the employee and probably more cost benefit to the employer. So anyway, that's a long answer, but so that's what I'm exploring. I'm excited about. I know the world of work is shifting, and I'm just trying to really pinpoint on what it means for everybody and how we can all win at the end of the day.
When you look back in a few years, how will you know if the shift has been effective? And your line is, it's time to shift your mindset. We help you think differently about work and money. So when you look back in a few years, how will you know if you've helped people think differently about work and money?
I think that we will see if we're actually seeing, and this is probably like a really big answer, it scares me to say, but
Those are the good answers. I want it. Yes, share it with us.
I think that if we see companies really changing the way they treat their employees from a hiring perspective, I think that if they're really taking into consideration what the employees want and working with them to give that to them. So I just think a change in the hiring process or the change in the actual, really what I come back to is the basic employment contract. If there is a change in what that looks like, I think that will be success, but I also think it'll be successful look like people that are happy with their jobs, with what they're doing. And so that there's not this negative talk around work that I feel like is just a constant in any room when people are talking about their careers and what they're doing right now.
So my final question about the shift is, what's the bigger vision? So you kind of gave me how you can kind of measure success. So what's the big vision for the shift?
So I think the big vision for the shift is, I build up a team that goes in and helps corporations really change the way they're hiring people and to change the way they're working with their employees, and really helping them understand and shift their thinking, get them unstuck, get them out of the way things always used to be, and really considering new options. The world's changing from so many different angles. That's kind of that's sort of what I see.
I love that vision, because I was expecting the vision to be more along the lines of just like more stopping at the creator. So maybe the shift becomes, like I mentioned, a podcast, and it's bigger, but it all stands in the creative. But to have a business that backs up the writing that you're doing and the research you've done to actually go implement change is pretty cool. And I think that's a cool thing for people to consider, because I do think more and more people want to be creators. Now, whether they really want to or they just think it'd be cool to make a bunch of money off of YouTube because they think it's easy, I don't know. But I think more people want to be creative and be creators, but it's kind of cool that that creative venture could actually turn into a more traditional business that goes and sells a service or does something, not just writing for a living. So I think it's a cool vision.
Yeah, I think it ties into, my creativity and my writing skills and my desire to really create thought-provoking content that makes people stop and think and reconsider the way things are done, into like actually helping them do that. Because I think that's the hardest thing with whether you're an individual or a business, is you kind of see the writing on the wall, where you want to get to and what you want to be, but you don't know how. The how is always the really, really difficult part. And so I think that if I'm going to talk about these things and I expect the world to change, then I'm going to have to help create the change too.
Well, that's respectful, because one of the few things that really annoy me is when people want to suggest all the things that are wrong, but never offer up a suggestion of like how to fix it. Like they just want to complain, but they don't want to do anything about it. So, you're not really complaining. You're identifying these issues and these trends, but then you're also bringing a solution to fix it. So I really love that.
Yeah, complaining does not change anything.
No. Well, are there any kind of closing thoughts as we kind of wrap up about, your journey and being creative and all the things we've talked about? Is there anything that you didn't get to say that you want to, or thoughts that have popped up that you want to end with?
I would just say, I think it's clear for me that I don't have it all figured out, and hopefully it's inspiring others to realize that you don't have to figure it all out. You just have to take the first step, and then the next step, and then the step after that. And so you just have to keep showing up every single day, and there's going to be days where it's messy, and there's going to be days where it makes total sense and you have complete clarity. But I don't know, trust the process, trust yourself. And I think one mantra that I've always lived off of, and maybe it's what I didn't answer in your question earlier, what gave me the courage to do this, is I've always just said to myself for the last 20 years of my career, is just trust the flow of your life, trust the timing of your life. Because there have been times in my life where I've felt like I was behind versus my peers, and there are times where I felt like, I wasn't doing or getting the opportunities that I deserved. And so just trust the timing of your life, and that's where I would leave it.
Have you ever read The Surrender Experiment?
No, I haven't.
So it's about going with the flow of life. I will send it to you as part of my thank you for coming on the podcast. The story is amazing, but it's all about going with the flow of life. And when you said flow of life, that's what I thought about. So, all right, you already dropped the website, but you said it kind of fast because I know you felt bad plugging it. Say it so everybody knows what it is. I'll link it in the show notes, but let them know where to get to the shift. Let them know where to follow you on social media so they can keep up with what it is that you're doing and follow your journey.
So it's www.lindsey, Lindsey, Bell, Bell.me. So it's www.lindseybell.me. And you'll find the shift, and you'll find each week's newsletter there, and there's a place right up top to sign up and join the newsletter. Join the movement.
Yeah, I joined it day one, so I've been getting it every week, and I follow all the content on LinkedIn as well. So I'll make sure to link to your LinkedIn also. Are you active on Twitter or X, whatever they call it now?
I'm on and off Twitter, so just LinkedIn is the
Okay.
best one.
All right. So then my final question for you, and I'm going to say this every episode, but I'm stealing this final question and ask from Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson's podcast, All the Smoke, but I love it. And it's worked out really well so far. So the final guest is, who would you like to see as a guest on Life Design Plus, with the caveat that you have to help get them on the show?
Okay, so I have two answers for you. One, I think you already know and may have had on your show, Anna Giaconte. She's a financial planner.
I know who. Yeah, I know. Yep, I know Anna. Yep. She hasn't been on yet, but I know her. Yes.
She's a good one, but one that is not in your industry that I think you might be interested in is, have you heard of Rich and Regular?
Rich and
Kirsten
regular.
and
No.
Julian Saunders. They have the blog called Rich and Regular.
Okay.
And so they were fire people. And they became financially independent, paid off like something like $200,000 in debt. But they're about more than just fire. They have their own podcast now too. They're doing all sorts of really cool things. They left the corporate world too, so that's why it made me think of you. Julian left first, and he just felt like he hit like the glass ceiling. He was never going to be able to be promoted. Never, his compensation opportunities were limited. And he left to do Rich and Regular full time. Then Kirsten, once they built it up big enough, follow suit later. And they're just a really cool couple that I believe truly live authentically, and they're just good people too. So I'd be happy to reach out to them on your behalf.
Well, they're going to my database, and I'm going to follow up with you to make that intro. Awesome. Well, I appreciate the time. I appreciate the vulnerability to share that you don't have it all figured out, which none of us do. And the reality of it is, if you're going to be making a transition like you have, or following and betting on yourself, it's never going to go the way you expect it to. So to have it all planned out, it's just your plan's going to go out the window, and you'll be frustrated. So I think it's good to have a little bit, know the direction you're going, allow the flow of life to kind of take you, and be nimble and just follow your passion. So everything I hoped this interview would share with the audience, you did, and I didn't know if it would. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing that with everybody.
You know what? One thing, you just made me think of one really quick thing that
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to add in somewhere. One thing that I really struggled with at the beginning is like having that end goal. Like what's the business side of creating content? Like, how am I going to make money? Is it going to be a consulting business? Is it going to be just making money off of my newsletter? Is it going to be like, I really struggled with seeing what the end product was, and it stressed me out significantly. So I got to this point where I was like, stop, Lindsey, stop thinking about what the end goal about how to make money is. Let's start with what you know you want to do, and then we'll take it step by step. And of course, I'm constantly always thinking about how to monetize, but having that great big destination out there, it was stressing me out. So that's why I let go of it and have trusted to go more with the flow and the timing of my life. And it was like I had to revisit that saying with myself, because that's how I've always lived my life, and I had to like recenter on that.
I knew you were going to say let it go, because I've had 2 conversations the last day about that. And my daily note today, before I started to write it, I thought it was going to be about letting go, and like I was going to work in Frozen and all that type of stuff. But I knew once you started going, there's a huge power in letting go. And once we let go, then a lot of times the thing that it is that we want ends up coming to us, or what's supposed to comes. But as long as we're holding on, we're never going to get it. So that's not getting moved anywhere. That's a perfect end to the episode. So we'll end with that little bonus answer. So Lindsey, thank you again for joining me. It's been a pleasure, and looking forward to seeing you maybe at Future Proof again this year.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you and Matt for the Rick Rubin suggestion. I bought that
Yes.
book. It's really cool. I love it.
Awesome. What did I tell you? Another great episode of Life Design Plus. Thank you so much, Lindsey, for sharing your story with everybody. I hope you all enjoyed it. Now, don't forget, head down to the comments, let Lindsey know what you took away from her story, what motivated and inspired you. Give her some feedback and let her know that her story moved some people out there and will help them better align their lives and find their authentic life. I want to thank you for tuning in. I want to thank you for joining me on my pursuit. It is an honor to be a part of yours, and let's keep pursuing.